Silence. Then, the sharp click of an old alarm clock, its piercing ring filling the room. Your deep breath, the creak of the mattress. In the kitchen, the kettle begins to hiss. Outside, the clatter of the milkman echoes down the street. The air is heavy with the aroma of strong tea and toast *, blended with the cool scent of morning and the faint taste of coal dust. You know that smell. It's in your lungs. Your rough, work-worn hands wrap up a hearty sandwich. By the door, your worn boots are waiting. Steps fall on the wet cobblestones. In the distance, the factory horn bellows, followed by the roar of a diesel bus carrying workers to their shifts. You stepped forward, and in that instant, as the doors of the workshop swung open, the world transformed. From the silence of dawn to the deafening roar that shook every cell of your body. If you have ever felt the ground tremble beneath your feet from thousands of machines working at once, if you've seen the air glitter with sparks of molten metal, you remember this moment. Your ears rang with the clash of steel on steel *, the piercing hiss of steam bursting under unthinkable pressure. Every hammer strike echoed in your chest, beating out the rhythm not just of labor, but of the life of an entire city. You breathed that air, heavy, dense, saturated with the acrid stench of hot machine oil that never quite left your clothes, the gritty coal dust that settled on your eyelashes, and the sharp scent of burning iron *, mixed with your own sweat that ran down your temples, stung your eyes, though you hardly noticed. This was your world. Harsh, demanding, but so familiar. Your hands, hardened with calluses *, burned * by the heat of metal, moved with remarkable precision, performing work no one else could. And you saw the same hands everywhere, strong, skilled, each one a vital part of a massive, synchronized organism. In your comrades' eyes shone the flicker of flames, the weight of fatigue, and deep concentration, the quiet understanding of men bound by the same reality. Here, amid the madness of noise and danger, you were never alone. You remember the brief, knowing glance that spoke louder than 1,000 words, the shouted warning that cut through the roar and saved lives. And the laughter booming, piercing through the din, when someone cracked a joke about the foreman or told a familiar story. This was shoulder to shoulder, back to back. This was absolute trust. Because here, in the very heart of industry, your life quite literally depended on the man beside you. On his skill, his focus, his unspoken oath. This was not just labor for wages. This was family *, forged in fire and smoke, tempered in dust and sweat. A brotherhood unwritten in laws but branded deep into the soul, stronger than any steel. You understood one another without words, by a single gesture, a single heavy breath. And this profound connection, this certainty that you weren't just a cog but an irreplaceable part of a vast, living organism, that is what we have lost. Lost forever. Then, cutting through the thunder, came the deafening factory siren, the signal that the shift was over, the sound of release. The machines began to quiet, their roar fading into the rising murmur of voices *, laughter, and weary relief. You hear the many footsteps *, heavy on the concrete floor, rushing toward a few precious hours of freedom and rest. You feel the tension ease, the air outside suddenly cooler, fresher after the suffocating heat of the workshop. The roar of voices replaced the thunder of machines, but not with silence. From the factory walls, like a wide river, flowed a stream of weary but liberated souls. And where did they go? You know the answer. You can feel the cool evening air wrapping around your face, washing away the heavy heat of the workshop still clinging to your skin. Ahead, a glimmering light. From open doors spills the muffled, ringing laughter *, the hum of conversations blending into one comforting melody, inviting you inside. It was the sound of home, though not your house. It was the sound of the local pub. You push open the heavy door and breathe in. The smell of beer *, soaked into the bar over decades, mixed with the savory aroma of fried food drifting from the kitchen, and the dense smoke of cigarettes *, hanging in the air like a grey veil. You hear the hiss of beer being poured *, its golden streams filling the glass, the clink of mugs raised in a toast, to a job well done, to the day behind you, to life itself. From the jukebox comes the energetic beat of 70s glam rock *, making your head nod to the rhythm, or perhaps the deep rhythm and blues of the 60s asterisk, soothing tired shoulders and dissolving the day's strain. Here, you didn't just drink. You shared news, made informal deals, debated football and politics, argued about life and death. It was the place where grief and joy were carried together, where laughter could silence any fatigue, any sorrow. And if not the pub, then home. You remember the crackle of the old radio broadcasting a football match, the commentator's voice more important to you than any speech or report. Or the gentle scratch of a vinyl record settling onto the turntable in the corner, filling the room with melodies you'd known since childhood. And, of course, the rich, comforting aroma of home-cooked food asterisk, prepared by loving hands, warming you from the inside after a long day, the sweetest consolation of all. The pub, the home, they weren't just places. They were extensions of your brotherhood, your community, forged at work, in the dust and noise. They were your third place, where you could be yourself, understood by those who had lived through the same, felt the same. They were the backbone of countless lives, the unspoken center of belonging. We lost that center. We traded those warm, living spaces for more isolated ways of rest, for silence and faceless screens. And that loss wasn't just of a place. It was the loss of connection, the loss of a spirit of community that lived in every sip of beer and every friendly clap on the shoulder. And so, from the cozy half-light of the pub, from the warmth of home, we step back onto the street, and our gaze falls on the people themselves. On how they looked, what they wore, how their very appearance spoke without words. Every crease in the fabric, every shine on their boots, all of it told a story of its own. Walking the evening streets, you see them. Not just a crowd, but faces, silhouettes that spoke without a sound. You remember what a British worker looked like, not from posters or magazines, but in real life. It wasn't high fashion, not glossy covers. It was a uniform of honor asterisk, soaked with sweat and dignity. You can feel the crisp roughness of tweed under your fingers, the weight of sturdy denim that, with years of wear, softened yet held its strength, shaping itself to the body. You see the shine of polished work boots asterisk, thick leather tough enough to withstand spilled oil, sharp edges, anything the day demanded. Those boots were your extension, your armor. They knew every step of your working life. And even when the persistent smell of machine oil asterisk was washed from work clothes, or the sting of coal dust brushed away, its essence remained. Its character endured. You remember the careful ritual of setting out the Sunday best, the crisp, starched scent of a shirt collar that meant respect, for yourself, your family, the holy day, and God. It wasn't just clothing, it was a rite, a small but powerful act of dignity. You wore your status, your belonging, openly, with pride. Look at the old photographs, thick leather belts with heavy buckles, worn for years, carrying the memory of countless days of labor. The outlines of tools pressed into the fabric of a worker's jacket, the shadow of screwdrivers, wrenches, hammers, marks of work that lingered even after the tools were put away. Your appearance told of your craft, of your honest toil, of the truth that you never shied from dirtying your hands, that you were one of the builders. It was a statement louder than slogans. It was pride, plain to see. This clothing was part of you. It told your story, of your day, your life. You belonged to a class, the backbone of the country, and your clothes carried that truth. They didn't hide it, they showed it, with dignity, with self-respect. The loss of that visible, tangible class identity, when your appearance itself reflected your labor, your place in society, was another deep loss. We traded it for faceless, uniform styles, where often it's impossible to tell who you are, what you do, what role you play in the world. It wasn't just fashion, it was a living symbol. And when you looked in the mirror wearing that clothing, you didn't just see yourself. You saw a part of something greater, something fundamental. You saw a builder, and when you walked the street, you saw hundreds like you. That sense of belonging, that visible, tangible connection to what you created, leads us to the scale of what those people, dressed like that, built for this country. They were not just men in clothes. They were part of its very architecture. You walk through the streets, the towns, the country itself, and everywhere you look, Wherever your foot falls, you see their labor. You hear the deep rumble of passing trains, their heavy wagons and powerful engines born in those same workshops, built by the hands of men like them. These were not abstract machines. They were tangible creations, every rivet, every inch of steel forged through persistence. You hear the unceasing roar of industrial machines that still run, or once thundered with life, designed by the genius and endurance of these workers. Their fingers touched every part, their knowledge embodied in every lever, every gear, every system that brought enormous structures to life. You remember the creak of massive cranes lifting giant steel beams skyward, turning them into the frames of factories, bridges, and ships preparing to leave the dock. It was a symphony of creation, every sound a note in a grand song. Touch the roughness of old brickwork the cold solidity of concrete in towering buildings that have stood for decades, resisting wind and rain, built with care and skill. Walk the roads that link towns, climb the stairwells of old mills, cross the bridges once seen as marvels of engineering. All of it bears the invisible, yet unmistakable imprint of their effort. Bridges that spanned rivers, factories that pulsed with life and gave work to thousands, homes that sheltered millions of families, roads that bound the nation together, ships that sailed the seas, machines that drove progress. All of it was made with their sweat, their strength, their steel hands. This was the feeling of visible, tangible contribution. You could point to a factory, a bridge, a ship, and say with pride, "We built this. This is our work." You could watch your labor take shape, see it stand in stone and steel, a part of the land itself. In your world, work was not just wages, not just survival. It was pride. You didn't just pass the hours, you built. You didn't just earn money, you created something that would endure, that would serve, that would stand. Modern work is often abstract, blurred, done before a screen where your contribution dissolves into numbers and reports, invisible. But then you could touch what you had made. You could walk past it and say, "My hand was here. My sweat seeped into this steel. My strength lifted this brick." It was pride in what you would leave behind, in what would serve the next generation, in the mark you set upon the world. And when you grasp the scale of that creation, which once was the norm, when you hear the grand resonance of hundreds of thousands of working hands, you also begin to sense the first troubling signs of decline. The tone shifts. The sound becomes less triumphant, tinged with melancholy. From the majesty of what was built, to the first ominous shadows falling over that world. The silence that followed creation was heavier than any roar, any noise you had ever heard. It was the ominous stillness of closed workshops, where life once pulsed and the air once vibrated with energy. You remember the whistle of wind drifting through shattered windows of abandoned factories, like a lament for what was lost, like the spirit of places that had died. You heard the grim announcements of layoffs on the radio, the shock in the voices of newsreaders, the helplessness that spread through whole towns like a sickness. And you saw it with your own eyes, thousands of men who had known nothing but honest, hard labor suddenly told they were no longer needed, their skill, their strength, devalued overnight. Picture the drip of water steady and relentless, filling the flooded mines that had fed families for generations, that had given meaning to their very existence. That sound was the end, the fading away. You can smell the heavy odor of mold and decay in places that once reeked of coal, oil, and hot metal, where the air had once been thick with life and hope. These weren't just buildings. They were ghosts, empty workshops, rusting machines, overgrown paths leading nowhere. Every nail, every broken window was a wound. And the worst of all, the slow, mournful echo of the last factory siren. A sound that didn't send workers home at the end of a shift, but marked its final breath. Its last cry was a requiem. This wasn't just the closure of industries. It was the destruction of lives. The unraveling of communities that had been built for centuries around mines, mills, and shipyards. The loss of identities that could not be separated from their labor. We didn't just lose our jobs. We lost ourselves. That was how they spoke, and how they felt. It was the sting of betrayal, by those who promised progress but delivered only emptiness, unemployment, despair. They promised us a future, but stole our past and our present. That bitter truth could not be denied. The camaraderie, the pride in work, the sense of purpose, all of it torn away, leaving only a gaping void. This was not just a time, not just a decade, it was an entire world we lost. A world that had seemed unshakable, the very foundation of the nation. And yet it vanished, dissolved, leaving only ghostly echoes in memory and on empty streets that once throbbed with life. The final image that remains, a lone figure, staring at the ruins of what once was the heart of his life. Your life. These were not just jobs erased from the map. This was the fabric of the nation itself, woven from sweat, solidarity, and an unbreakable spirit of honor. It was a world built by hands, not by numbers on a screen. A world that once felt eternal, immovable. A world now gone, leaving only faint shadows in memory and silence on deserted streets. The world Britain lost forever. And at the very end, the faintest, dying echo of the factory siren, fading into absolute silence. Leaving nothing but emptiness. If you remember that world, if you feel its echoes, if it resonates in your memory, stay with us. Let these memories live. Let them not vanish without a trace. Join those who refuse to forget, who cherish what was, and who understand the price of what was lost.